Hi, I'm Dr. John Harper from beautiful Oceanside, California, and I'm here with you today to share some very good news. You're probably watching this video right now because either for yourself or somebody that you love and care about is having a problem that concerns you. Maybe it's memory loss. Maybe it's change in personality. Maybe it's insomnia, anxiety, depression. Maybe it's ADD or ADHD. Maybe it's some problem with the way that your body's moving, tremors. All these things are indications of a bad brain. And so what are we going to talk about today? Why isn't my brain working? I'm going to introduce you to metabolic testing, functional nutrition, and functional neurology for bad brain conditions. So today, what are we going to talk about? What are bad brain conditions? What causes a bad brain? And most importantly, what can be done to maximize your brain's health through functional neurology and functional medicine. So it's really important that I introduce myself to you today so you get to know me and understand where I'm coming from. See, I've been in private practice since 1986 right here in Oceanside. I love Oceanside. It's great. I have personally consulted, examined, and treated over 7,300 patients. What does that mean? I have 50, 60,000 hours of working with patients, listening, doing the detective work, working with them, mentoring and coaching them back to health, and most importantly, teaching them how they could take care of themselves for the rest of their life so they don't need me or anybody else. I am a board member of the American Functional Neurology Institute. Very important that I have that certification in working with brain problems. I've been granted numerous awards and certifications in my 30 years of practice. I'm very proud of that. I regularly attend conferences and symposiums so I can stay on top of the newest research, diagnostics, and protocols. An article came out not too long ago that said that physicians are 17 years on average behind the research. 17 years. I'm shooting this video here in 2016. What would you do if you went to a physician and they whipped out a cell phone from 1999? All right? What would that phone look like? What would you think about that physician? Well, I'm going to tell you something. I'd rather have a physician use a 17-year-old phone than use 17-year-old treatment on me. I'm a third-generation Southern Californian, very proud of the fact. I live right here in my Oceanside. I have 4 kids, and I got 5 grandkids. I lead a very blessed life when it comes to my family and where I live and what I get to do for a living. So I want to give credit to Datus Karazian. He is a doctor of health sciences, doctor of chiropractic, and master of sciences. I have taken courses and studies with Dr. Karazian. We call him Dr. K. Not only is he a brilliant man that's able to break down very complex information and get it into something that's available for consumption, but he is an amazingly caring man. He wants his doctors, he wants his patients to get the very best that they can from him, and I'm just very blessed that I get to work with him, and he is truly one of my mentors. So let's talk about why a functional neurologist versus a regular neurologist. Well, there's a thing called hard lesions. Hard lesions are like strokes, aneurysms, tumors. These have pauses of imaging. You can see these on CT scans, PET scans. You can see those things. They have obvious exam findings. You know, the person's paralyzed. They have loss of use of a part of their body. The body doesn't want to digest food. They have, you know, very, very positive things that you can see. And this is why you go to a medical neurologist. But the vast majority of the problems people have are considered soft lesions, all right? These don't have positive imaging. This is why people go and get their brain looked at and they say, well, you're normal. Well, why am I having all these problems? It's just in your head. Subtle exam findings. This is why I do a really extensive exam rather than just something very simple and brief that most physicians do. They cause functional problems. It changes your life. And again, that's done by a functional neurologist. So here's quite a list of problems that we can have when you have a problem, a soft brain lesion, or when a lesion is a problem. You can have depression, anxiety, insomnia, fatigue, memory loss, brain fog, chronic pain or headaches, attention deficit, ADD, ADHD, spectral problems. You can't focus, emotional changes, impulsiveness, lack of enjoyment, lack of fulfillment, vertigo, blurred vision, spatial disorientation, balance problems, huge issue, weakness, numbness, tingling, spontaneous movement or movement disorders. You can't follow directions, digestive problems, high blood pressure, OCD, mood swings, lack of motivation, not social, and worst of all, you're just not enjoying life. So how prevalent are problems, soft brain lesions, you say? Well, 1 out of 8 seniors are going to develop Alzheimer's. Totally unacceptable that people are going to just lose their lives and forget everything, except their bodies will keep working. For 13 years, I watched my grandmother suffer in a retirement home, a nursing home, and it was just horrific. I finally asked my mom at 13 years old, please don't make me keep doing this. Right? I can't stand it. 1 out of 8 children develop spectral disorders, problems in school, problems at home, not problems with their friends. Terrible. And what do? We throw drugs at them. Dementia. Already there's 24 million people in the world. In 2016, by 2040, that number's supposed to double. Who's going to take care of all those people? Who's going to pay for all that? Use of antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds, number 2 selling drug in the world after cholesterol drugs. And one of the worst things is that, what's the number 1 cause of accidental death? Falling down. Falling down. People's brains aren't working, can't communicate to the body properly, you trip, you fall, break something, you go to the hospital, you get an infection, and boom, you're dead. So balance disorder is super important. So this is really simple. This is something that's important to understand why we need to get the brain fixed and why does the brain have problems. So everything in your life starts in the brain. So here we have a nerve coming down. Here we have a nerve coming up. And what happens is an electrical impulse, the nerves are just like wires, an electrical impulse runs around the nerve, and at the end of the nerve, little chemicals called neurotransmitters. These are hormones of the brain, of the nervous system. These neurotransmitters go into this little space called the synapse, or the synaptic cleft. What's supposed to happen is, because whatever your brain wants your body to do or experience, certain neurotransmitters are supposed to be there for a certain amount of time. Not too long, not too short. And then this will start another electrical impulse in this nerve, and that will carry that message out to the different parts of your nervous system or to your body. As long as this is all working right, you work right. But if there's a problem with this, that this doesn't work the way it's supposed to, it's impossible for you to work the way it's supposed to. So what does a healthy brain need? Well, it needs proper glucose, right? That's sugar, energy, the gasoline of your car. The proper oxygen supply. That's the oxygen that your car gets so it can light that fuel, burn it, move the motor. You need proper neurotransmitters. That's the proper mix of the gasoline so your body can work the way it's supposed to. Proper activation. That's the key that turns the electrical system and the battery so to your brain that has that. And inflammation free. You got to have good clean gas and a good clean motor for everything to work right. Your brain works just like that. If you don't have the basics, if you don't have all of these basics, medications will only work for a very short amount of time, and then you're left with it not working, and on top of all that, you have all those side effects. So, speaking of side effects, this is a paper that it's called Sense and Nonsense, and it was written by Dr. Marty Hines. He's a medical doctor. He's president of clinical research of Neuro Research Clinics Incorporated. And I want to read you what he said. I believe most physicians would agree that the optimum treatment of any disease is to address the cause of the problem instead of merely attempt to manipulate the symptoms. Yet every time a prescription for a reuptake inhibitor, these are medications for the brain problems, is written, the physician is manipulating the symptoms and doing nothing to address the cause of the problem, which is neurotransmitter litters that are not high enough to control disease symptoms. The population in the United States is over 300 people. And it goes on to say that 10%, 30 million people are on these reuptake inhibitors. So they're not very effective because only 7 to 13% of the patients have a more improvement over the placebo, all right, the fake medication. So what the reuptake inhibitors are good, are you ready for this, is depleting the neurotransmitters. The very thing that your brain is getting the problem from, the very underlying cause, is that it depletes your neurotransmitters. So what does that do? That makes you have to have the medication. Because if you try to go off of them, your brain doesn't even have the ability to make those neurotransmitters the way it did before. And guess what happens? You crave, you have worse symptoms, so you go back onto these things. I think that's criminal. You're being made to be addicted to a drug that has side effects just for somebody's pockets, just sort of for somebody's bottom line, for stockholders. I think that's horrible. So if you go here, these SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, these are known as Prozac and Luvox, Zoloft, Paxil. We have Lexapro, Celexa. All these have problems. They have nausea, insomnia, dizziness, weight gain or loss, tremor, sweating, anxiety, restlessness, decreased sex drive, drowsiness, fatigue, dry mouth, diarrhea, constipation, and headaches. Guess what? If you take these medications and you may have a 7 to 13% improvement, you start having these symptoms, now you're going to have to take medications for this problem. So now you're taking medications for medications. When you take these medications for the symptoms, you got to take medications for that. Who wants to do that? That's crazy. I had a patient one time come to me. She brought all her bottles of medication, and I said, do me a favor. I want you to put one pile of the original medications, and then I want you to make another pile of the medications that are taken for the side effects of the originals. She put them in 2 piles, and she says, I am an idiot. I said, what's going on? She goes, look, Dr. Harper, I have 6 original medications, and I'm taking 9 medications for the symptoms of these 6. But it was just over years that this had it. It was so slowly done that you didn't notice it. And she said, I thought my physician, he knew everything. He's a doctor. He knows everything. And she looked down, and I said, what do you think now? And she goes, I think he's an idiot too. So medications is not the way. So let's step into what I do. This is what makes me different. See, most physicians look at you as lab tests and symptoms and pills, shots, and surgery just to cover up those symptoms. I look at you differently. I look at you as a whole human being. And because you're a whole human being, there are things that we need to know. If you have acute illness, like a bad car accident, a heart attack, a stroke, those things require medication, emergency hospitalization. Those things, you're going to get your life saved here in the United States. On the other hand, chronic health conditions, like we're talking about with the brain, those things are horrifically bad in the United States with common medical treatment. What they fail to understand is that all chronic illnesses are a combination of a neurological and metabolic problem. And those require proper metabolic treatment and neurological treatment. And if we don't take care of both of the neurological and metabolic side at the same time, you will never ever get well. It's impossible. You may get temporary relief, but the problem will always keep coming back, and it will come back worse. So these are the chronic health conditions that I take care of in my office, and they all have some common threads. Now, I've had patients say, well, gee, Dr. Harper, you're a jack of all trades, specialist of none. I specialize in chronic health conditions. The reason why is they have common threads. And when we deal with these chronic health problems and these chronic threads, guess what? Those chronic health problems go away, and it seems like a miracle. So this is the things I take care of, all right? Bad brain function, autoimmune conditions, thyroid conditions, peripheral neuropathy, insulin resistance, diabetes, fibromyalgia, vertigo, sciatica, chronic fatigue syndrome, hypertension, chronic back and neck pain, irritable bowel syndrome, ADD and ADHD spectral problems, migraine, chronic headaches. Because they have metabolic imbalances that could be from anemia, chronic inflammation, unstable blood sugar, adrenal gland dysfunction, hormone imbalances, autoimmune attacks, hidden infections, very common food sensitivities, medication side effects, hugely common, hypoxia, which is low oxygen. And all these things affect the nervous system. So you can have neurological imbalances because of decreased firing of the brain and the nervous system. This is what we call nervous system fatigue. This is why we can take care of all these problems, especially brain problems. So important to remember, you can't separate the health of your brain from the health of your body. Your brain tells your body what to do. There's some 10,000 chemical reactions in your body every single minute. And guess what? Your brain's in charge of that. So if your brain's not working, you're not working. So the other thing I want you to remind you is that we live in a toxic soup. Our bodies were built to be in clean places. Our ancestors lived where there was no electromagnetic forces. They lived where there was natural products that we wore in our body and used in our house. Clean organic food, clean water. There was no pollution. There was no plastics. There were no cell phones and cell towers. There were bacteria and viruses and molds and all those things have just, oh my gosh, they've adapted so well, much better than we have, to the current environment. The pesticides, the herbicides, the way that food is raised, the antibiotics, the hormones that are in our meat and our dairy, the cleaning products that we use. We live in a toxic soup. Now, I don't tell you this to depress you, but you've got to do something to clean this up. We've got to get this cleaned up. Now, people say all the time, oh, Dr. Harper, I've done a liver cleanse. I've done kidney cleanses. I'm talking about way more than that. I'm talking about cellular cleanses inside the cell. You need to get the cell cleaned out because that's where the poisons are. What does this have to do with your brain? If your brain cells have toxins in them, poisons in them, you can't function. We've got to use simple, easy, safe ways to get rid of those things so you can get your brain function back. Also, we need to talk about how your digestive system is tied into your brain. They're calling the digestive system the second brain now. Why? Well, when you have gut inflammation, gut is your esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine. When those things get inflammation, it's usually from an immune reaction to a food sensitivity, a toxin, or an infection. Inflammation is bad. Bad, bad, bad. Inflammation is like little machetes running around inside your body, cutting up tissue, the inside of your blood vessels, the outside of the cells. Inflammation is really bad for you. And so when you have an immune reaction to foods or a toxin or an infection, it produces a thing called inflammatory cytokines. The cytokines signals your immune system that there's a problem. And what happens with the cytokines when they're in your digestive system, it causes a problem called leaky gut. Leaky gut means that when the normal way your digestive system works is that there's supposed to be these microscopic holes where little bits of broken down digested food get into your bloodstream through the digestive system. Instead, because of all this inflammation, those little holes get bigger and bigger, and chunks of food get into your blood now. That causes more food sensitivities, which comes back up to here. So up here in your digestive system, we get this horrible cycle of inflammation, leaky gut, more inflammation, more food sensitivities. So if you or your child or your parent is eating less and less foods because they make them sick or they don't feel like eating them, this is part of this problem, is that your body's trying to tell you that we have leaky gut and we got to fix that. I'm an expert at that. If you go here, these inflammatory cytokines go into the bloodstream. That crosses into the what's called the brain-blood barrier, and the inflammation gets into your brain, these cytokines, and it reacts with what's called the microglial cells. Those are immune system cells in your brain. That's the majority of your brain. And those become inflamed, and it causes inflammation in the brain. So there's a saying in functional medicine, fire in the gut, fire in the brain. We have got to make sure we understand that if your digestive system isn't right, your brain's not right. The vast majority of my patients that come to see me with brain problems, they have constipation, diarrhea, GERD, acid reflux, or they'll say, I used to have that, but I take a bunch of medicine for it and cover up those symptoms. That's not the way to fix things. You got to fix what's wrong. So brain fatigue and misfiring, this is what happens with the problem with the digestive system, problems with all the toxins and the poisons, problems with the way that the body just can't function and provide the good things that the brain needs. This is why we're sick. This is why we're having the problems that we have. So I'm going to just run through a bunch of symptoms that we can cause, because a lot of people don't understand all the problems that your brain not functioning right can cause. depression, anxiety, difficulty scanning pages while reading, difficulty adding or subtracting, verbal expression, difficulty understanding language, decreased memory, big problem, learning disabilities, lack of focus, altered sensations in your body, numbness, tingling, burning, changes in your handwriting, anger, increased irritability, impulsiveness, not being able to control your emotions, body weaknesses, lack of motivation. I just don't want to do anything. I had a patient the other day. She said, you know, Dr. Harper, I used to sit in my chair in front of the TV and go, I have to take care of this, and I have to take care of that, and I have to take care of that. And then she'd sit down in the chair the next day and she goes, you know, I'm going to get to this, I'm going to get to that, I'm going to get to this. And then she says, you know, after 2 months of being with you, you know what I do? I don't sit in the chair. I'm taking care of this, I'm taking care of that, and I'm taking care of that. She says, I want to do it, and I enjoy seeing the accomplishment rather than feeling bad that I didn't finish something. It changed her life. It was great. Learning disabilities, dyslexia, ADD, ADHD things. Great stories. 11-year-old little boy. He was 2 years behind in his school, held back because he couldn't study, didn't want to do the homework. He was teased. He had facial tics. And he would stutter sometimes. You know, he was teased by the kids. He was an outcast. His parents brought him to me. 4 months of treatment, he stopped the facial tics. He is up in 2 grades. He's up with his other grade class. They used to have to fight him to do his homework, and he'd do his homework maybe for 2 or 3 minutes and then quit, start doing other things. Now he comes home, gets a snack, and on his own he goes and does his homework. And his dad, with tears in his eyes, said, you know, Dr. Harper, the trajectory of my son's life, of where he was going versus where he's going now, is going to make all the difference in the world. He would have been had a miserable life, and now he has a chance for a great life. Boy, does that touch my heart. Boy, does that make me happy. Amazing. I love what I do. Results, if we have frontal, parietal, temporal lobe fatigue, problems in those part of the brain, it does not inhibit the sympathetic nervous system. That's fight or flight. So, you know, when a big dog runs up to you and goes, rah, 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 you know, starts barking, you know, your muscles tense, your blood pressure goes up, you get ready for a fight, your vision gets better, your adrenal glands kick in. Why? Because you're going to get ready to fight that dog or run away if you need to. That's great, but that's only supposed to happen for a few seconds. Unfortunately, with bad brains, our fight or flight is stuck on all day. What does this cause? Chronic pain, chronic fatigue, irritable bowel syndrome, urinary tract infections, fibromyalgia, migraine tension headaches, poor posture like Bigfoot, adrenal gland stimulation, again, adrenal fatigue, blurred vision, increased sweating, difficulty falling or staying asleep. Boy, so many people come to me with sleep problems. Dizziness, vertigo, heart palpitation, increased heart rate, high blood pressure. You know, does a physician ever check your brain when you have high blood pressure? No. They put the cuff on, you got high blood pressure, boom, you got medicine, right? You know, also fight or flight problems, you get cold hands and feet, sensitivity to light and sound. Cerebellum fatigue, all right? This is what we talked about. Number 1 cause of accidental death, falling down. Loss of balance, vertigo, chronic neck and back pain, headaches, clumsiness, dropping things, disorganized thinking, right? Add a lack of output to the upper brain, frontal, parietal, and temporal lobes. Again, number 1 cause of accidental death. So what do we have to do to figure out what's going on? Well, first of all, we got to do proper testing and examination protocols. We got to figure what these things are. And then we got to remove those things, all right? So what we want you to do is we want you to remove the triggers. So leaky gut syndrome, we got to figure out if you have that. Infection testing. We got to support the mitochondria, the little energy production factories that are in every one of your cells. Gut infections, unstable blood sugar, food sensitivities, chronic inflammation, metal toxicity. We got to see if you have all of these things. It is so important to get to the underlying cause so we can get you back your health. Now, one of the things that happens on a regular basis is that patients come to me and say, oh, Dr. Harper, you don't need to do many labs because they're all normal. This is what happens all the time. But I want to let you know something. Lab ranges are inaccurate. Bell curves are used. Let me explain what I mean by that. Bell curves, I believe, came up by students to grade them, to know how to give them A, B, C's, D's, and F's. And the idea is that 20% of the population was going to be above average, A's and B's. 20% of the population was going to be below average, D's and F's. And then the C's were going to be 60%. So we got 20%, 60%, 20%. Looks like a bell curve. Well, maybe that works for grading, but I'm going to tell you something. It certainly doesn't work for labs, and let me explain why. Every year when you have your labs done, it goes into a computer system that averages all the labs. And it takes all these averages and puts them in this bell curve. So only people that are 20% too low, 20% too high are considered to have a problem. And the 60% in the middle are considered normal. Well, what they've done is they confused average with normal. The other problem is that when you take labs, the vast majority of people who are getting these labs done, these are sick people. So the 60% bell curve of average normal is the average sick person. That doesn't make any sense to me. So this is why I use functional lab ranges, because those values are much more sensitive to reveal problems. And let me show you why. So here you have your 20% too low, your 20% too high, and then here you have your bell curve of the 60% average. But what happens is that in these green areas right here, these are where people are still having problems. So this is why you're usually so frustrated, or people are frustrated, say, oh, well, the doctor says, even ridiculous enough, the doctor will look at the labs as if the labs are the ones that are feeling the symptoms and say, oh, you're healthy. Yeah, how can I be healthy if I feel bad? And then the doctor gives you a pill or a shot or surgery for this, for your healthy lab. What I do is I use these functional lab ranges, more narrow. And by doing this, we can find problems sooner, quicker, and get them under control instead of waiting until you're full-blown really bad and really sick. So let me give you an example. You go get your blood work done and your blood sugar comes out, your glucose comes out as a 73. So your physician will look at that with the normal lab ranges and say, well, hey, that's really great. You're doing really good. Oh, but doctor, I'm really tired. I get these headaches. I get really crabby if I don't eat. Nope, the labs say you're normal. It's all in your head. All right? So that doesn't work. If you're in my office, the range is 85 to 100. What does that mean? Well, that means that you have hypoglycemia. You don't have enough fuel in your body to get the brain firing and the rest of the body working right. So guess what's going to happen? Of course you're going to have symptoms. It's like really poor gasoline in your car. So this is why we use the functional lab ranges. Very, very important point. So based upon your history, we may run any various kinds of these labs. So we're going to look at functional values as well. So genetic testing. This is something that's very new. You may have heard of 23andMe. It's a genetic testing lab. They use saliva, and what they do is by looking at the cells in your saliva, we can tell an awful lot about you. Not only your ancestry, what country your heritage is from, but we can tell what genetic problems you have inherited from your parents. About 30% of all Americans have a problem with what's called methylation. And if you have a methylation problem, you don't use your vitamin B supplements very well, or the vitamin B that's in the food. So what happens? Well, the vast majority of every chemical reaction in your body depends on vitamin B. So if your body doesn't break down the B vitamins very well, you can't use them. And so this is important, and this is why we do this on a regular basis. We do a complete blood panel. We do our... I'm always amazed when people say, oh yeah, my doctor did a complete metabolic panel, and it's got 15, 16 tests on it. My complete metabolic panel has 60 tests. 60, all right? Not 16, 60. Why? We've got to look at you. We've got to know this. Now, people go, oh my gosh, this must be thousands of dollars. It's not. I've negotiated with the lab company. I do so many of these labs. I negotiated a very good price. Probably about the price that you're paying or your insurance is paying for the 16 test, I get for 60 tests. Very important that we look at all these things. Hormone testing, super important. I use a really great test. It's a real simple test. You don't have to do blood or anything like that. It's a urine test. You go pee-pee on a little cloth, and then you hang it up and it dries, and then we send that in, and it gives us fantastic information about male hormones, female hormones, your stress hormones, your immune system hormones, and also how does your body use those? What are the breakdown products for all of those things? So it's an amazing test, and I guarantee you've never had this test done in your physician's office. I can guarantee you that. Mental toxicity, mineral deficiency. This is a hair test. We take a little bit of hair off the back here or some pubic hair, and it's an amazing thing. We can tell what you're toxic with. What do we need to detox? What specific things need to get out of your body? What minerals are you deficient in? People know that vitamins are important, but you know what? The minerals are what let the vitamins work. So you got to make sure you have your minerals right. Also, another thing that we do regularly is we test for antibodies, and we test for antibodies to foods. The food sensitivity test that I do, it's just a stick of your finger. We get 5 drops of blood, and within 2 weeks, we learn what of 132 different foods are you food sensitive to, what are causing inflammation. Also, we might do a test to see if you have leaky gut syndrome. We might do a test for autoimmune testing to see if one of 90 different tissues are being under attack. We're very thorough, very, very thorough, but these things are all reasonably priced so we can get to the underlying cause and get you healthy. So what's so important about food? Why is this so important of eating right and having the right kind of nutrition? Well, your body and your digestive system have to work right, and your brain depends on the food that you get. So in my definition, metabolism is that you eat food and your body turns it into energy. So I have a question for you. 30% of all the energy goes to one system. Is it the endocrine system, digestive, nervous, immune system, or cardiovascular? Well, I hope you picked nervous system, because that's what we're talking about. See, if you have a metabolic problem, your brain will not work right, because your brain is the most metabolically active organ in your body. Your nervous system takes up about 4 to 5% of your body weight, but it uses nearly a third of all the energy. So it's very, very sensitive to proper energy and nice, clean environment. So poor energy production starves the brain of the power it needs to function properly, and the inflammation in the brain aggravates what are called the microglial cells. The microglial cells, like we said before, those are the immune system cells that make up the majority of your brain. When this happens, you get fewer nerve impulses, and you get a sick person. So how do we further test and support your brain? You're like, wow, Dr. Harper, this is a lot of stuff. Yes, because your life is important. Your happiness is important. We've got to get to the underlying cause. So I use functional neurology, all right? Like we said in the beginning, that's looking for those soft lesions versus the hard lesions of, cancer and stroke and aneurysm. So as a functional neurologist, and I do look for those things too. Those are easy things to find. It's these other soft lesions sometimes that are more difficult and need, the kind of things that I do. So as a functional neurologist, I do a thorough neurological exam that shows the various parts of checks the various parts of your nervous system. So it's really interesting because I have patients that have come from Mayo Clinic. I have patients that come from all around the country. I have patients that fly in from out of the country. And I'm doing an exam, and they say, "What are you doing?" And I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I was at Mayo Clinic, or I was at Johns Hopkins, or I was at Boston Children's Hospital, and they didn't do an exam like this." Well, what did they do? "Oh, well, the doctor did some reflexes and did a pinwheel and looked in the back of my eye and set me off for a PET scan or a CT scan." And I say, "Well, I'm doing a standard to me, standard functional neurology exam. This is going to take us 15, 20 minutes to get our way through. There's a lot of stuff that I have to evaluate, the different parts of your brain, different parts of your nervous system. It's very important to do a thorough evaluation because we've got to get to the bottom of the problem." And at least half of my patients on their own just remarked, "I've never had an exam like that. I've never had anybody be so thorough in the consultation, the time that we sit and talk to each other, and the actual examination." So, has a physician ever done a functional neurological exam to see if each part of it is functioning properly? I don't think so. I really doubt that. So in addition to that specialized exam, our office is one of the few in the country that actually uses what's called qualitative electroencephalograms to evaluate the brain and then use neurofeedback to retrain parts of the brain to become healthy again. Before I get into what neurofeedback is, take a listen to what this doctor had to say. Now, I don't always agree with physicians, but this Dr. Frank Duffy, this guy is one smart doctor. He is a neurologist. Right? He's a medical doctor and he's in neurology. He's head of neuroimaging department and head of neuroimaging research at Boston Children's Hospital. Okay? Boston Children's Hospital, one of the 3 top hospitals in the country. He's a Harvard Medical School professor. This guy is no slouch. He did an independent study review of the literature on neurofeedback for clinical EEG, and he summarized his findings as follows. This is a quote. The literature which lacks any negative study of substance, which means every study that was done said the stuff works, suggests that EEG biofeedback therapy should play a major therapeutic role in many difficult areas. So in tough cases, this is where we ought to go. He further said, in my opinion, if any medication has demonstrated such a wide spectrum of efficacy, that means works so well in so many cases without side effects, get it? Without side effects, this medication would be used universally and accepted. Does that make sense? If a pharmaceutical company could make money on this thing, it would be everywhere. But because they don't, it's suppressed and squashed. You know, it's a real shame that our country has become so beholden to the pharmaceutical companies. They put more money into lobbying our government than any other group. Matter of fact, all the other groups combined don't spend as much money. And you might think, well, why do they have to lobby the government officials to change the laws to help people with medication? And really the laws get changed because they don't want you suing them. So many people get sick and so many people die and so many people have permanent problems from medication. They're changing the laws on what you can and can't do as far as suing them. And I think that's a real shame. Also, they're changing the laws of how easy is it to get these things out there. Also, do you know that the pharmaceutical companies are paying for the, quote, objective testing of these drugs before they're put on the market? If that's your boss, I have a feeling your boss says, now look real good and make sure we don't have any problems with these drugs, all right? So I'm not saying that we shouldn't never ever have medication. There are times that you need it. Acute problems, like I had kidney stones, and thank goodness for the morphine and the other painkillers I took, because I had to get surgery, and by the time I got to the surgery, I was in terrible pain. I'm just saying, drugs are not always the answer. So this is the readout that we get here for the EEGs. So right here, these are the 4 different brain waves. Every one of these colors right here, these little circles, should be green. When you see yellow and red, that means that brain wave is too high. In the areas where you see the blue and light blue, it's too low. So let me explain how this works. So as we're measuring these 4 different brain waves, think of these guys as 4 different members of a band. You got your drummer, bass player, lead guitar, and you got your lead singer. Now, when all 4 of them are playing the same song, same tempo, same volume, same key, sounds like a decent song. What happens is that, let's say the drummer starts banging out a different beat, but the other 3 continue to play the regular music. What is your attention going to be drawn to? Are you going to be these 3 that are doing the thing, or the one that's out of step? Well, the one that's out of step. You're going to be going, what's wrong with the drummer? This is how the brain works when the brain waves don't work right. When you have parts of your brain where the brain waves aren't right, that's the thing you notice. That's your memory problem. That's the inability to focus. That's your anxiety. That's your depression. That's your insomnia. That's your ADHD. So what we do is that we want to retrain the brain back to the way it's supposed to be. And you want to know the really horrible, hard thing you have to do to train your brain? You have to listen to music or watch TV. I think, raise your hand if you can watch TV or listen to music, all right? It's great. See, our brains are so great at training that the neurofeedback will train the brain back to how it's supposed to be. Now, you use neurofeedback every day of your life. You just don't know it. Prime example, when you learned how to ride a bicycle. When you learned that bicycle, you would ride that bike, and if you started without training wheels like I did, you would be riding the bike, and boom, you'd fall on your left side. Ow, that hurts. Your brain says, I don't want to do that. Feedback. Your brain says, okay, that's not going to happen. And then you ride your bike, and boom, you fall on the right side. Ow, I don't like that. I don't want to do that. Again, feedback. What happens is that your brain trains itself to propel you forward in a balanced state to stay on the bike and go. Also, when you do neurofeedback, just like learning to ride a bike, it's there forever. You've retrained it. So I didn't ride a bike for about 20 years. I got on a bike. It was a little weird for a little bit, but guess what? It went really great, and I had a good time. So same thing with the neurofeedback. So how does this work? Well, we have little sensors on your head and little sensors on your ears, and there's nothing going into your head, all right? There's nothing going into your brain. It's a sensor, like a thermometer. You put the thermometer in your mouth. As long as you don't break the thermometer, it just senses the temperature in your mouth by moving the mercury inside the glass. The neurofeedback, as you're watching the movie or listening to music, it's monitoring your brain. And I set the thing to have it train down the reds and the yellows and train up the blues. As long as your brain's within a certain range of doing that, the music's playing, the movie's playing. But if you step outside of that range within a tenth of a second, those things go off. Now your brain says, hey, I want those things back. How do I get the music back? How do I get the movie back? You don't do anything. I tell the patients, just sit there. Your brain's so smart, it'll figure this out for you. So all you have to do is just sit there and listen to music and watch the TV. What the brain does is it goes through these files in your brain, and then within a tenth of a second of hitting the right file, on comes the movie. So the brain goes, I know how to keep the music on. I know how to keep the movie playing, because it's training the brain the way we want it to. So this is your neurofeedback. Fantastic. I love this machine. I love this modality. Used it for myself. It is great, and we've had great results. Great results. We had a little boy, 9-year-old boy, and he did that. I explained it before, and this was one of the main things that we did with that little boy to get his brain trained back on purpose. So, what makes our office different? Every other doctor from every other doctor you've seen. Well, we treat our patients, like I said, neurologically and metabolically. Remember that circle, the pie little chart there? You have to take care of, in chronic conditions, you have to take care of the neurological side and the metabolic side. You got to take care of the brain and nervous system side. You got to take care of your body, how it digests food, how the blood sugar, inflammation, leaky gut. You got to take care of all those things. I'm here to tell you that no stone is left unturned to determine the exact cause of your problem. My job first off is a detective, to get to the nitty-gritty, exactly what is causing your problem, instead of guessing or just saying, oh, it's in your head or I can't help you. So what's the next step? Well, make an appointment. I can't help you until we can see. And I want to let you know, I won't accept you if I can't help you. If I can't dramatically improve your life, it is not worth your time or money or effort. It's not worth my time to have a disappointing patient. That drives me crazy when patients don't get well. It is so important that you get well that I put all my focus, all my training, everything I do to help you on an individual basis. One of the things I pride myself in is that you will always know what's coming, what's going to happen during the visit. You're also always going to know the fee that's associated with it and what you need to do. So the first 2 visits, I'm going to do visit 1, I'm going to do a complete neurological exam. I'm going to review any existing labs or any neuro evaluations that you had. So bring that stuff in. Fill out the metabolic assessment form. I'm up to 328 really nosy questions. It's all about symptoms. And you rate it on a scale of 0 to 3. 0, you never have it. 3, you have it all the times. 1 and 2 is something in between. You rate that all out. Oh, I hate filling out paperwork. Well, I'm going to tell you, in the half an hour it takes to fill this thing out, I'm going to save you thousands and thousands of dollars of labs. Right? I've learned a way. I used to spend like $3,000 to $4,000 in labs, and this is crazy. What I'd rather do is figure out what we can do. What do you absolutely have to get better? What labs do we absolutely have to know to figure out what's wrong with you? then we go from there. And it is just great. This form just gives me all kinds of information on how to help you. You got to be with the spouse or significant other, all right? Now, the reason why is that I expect a team approach with my patients. If there's somebody at home, if there's somebody that's going to, about the appointments or any kind of food changes or, time or finances or any of these kind of things, they got to be there to know what's going on. I have found that we get great results by having a team approach. That is so important. It is so critical that we work together, all right? Now, if you're in a house where spouses or significant others and you don't talk to each other, you make all your own decisions, you have your own bank accounts, you pay your own bills, if it's like that, that's fine, all right? If you're just roommates, you can come on your own. But don't you dare, when we talk about time and finances and, commitment and things you have to do, well, I have to go home and talk to my spouse or significant other. I don't want to hear that, all right? We'll be done right then. I just want great results, that's all. I'm all about results, and I've learned in 30 years of practice and 7,300 patients, teamwork gives me great results. Visit 2, if I can accept you into care, overview further complete testing to be done, review the neurological findings from the first visit, overview of the treatment plan, review the fees. That is all in writing. All right? I'm not going to sit there and just go blah, blah, blah. I'm going to have it all in a nice big booklet explaining everything, all the therapies, all the treatments, anything, the testing, why, time, money, finances, all very clear. And you get to decide if that's something you want to do. And you don't have to decide that day. Think about it. It's super important. I want you to be sure that this is right for you, just like I want to be sure that you're right for us. I don't accept every patient. I only work with the ones that are really committed and want to get well. And again, your spouse has got to be there. What else you got to do for your first appointment? Well, I need you to bring something where I can get to you from your knees to your toes and from your elbows to your fingers and from the neck up. So shorts, sweatpants, t-shirt, something like that, something where you can roll up sleeves. Have all that paperwork filled out completely, be on time, and then again, spouse or significant other. So because you've gone through this video and I've explained what we do and you know the vast majority of what we're looking at, I don't have to charge a big upfront fee. I used to sit here for an hour with every patient and explain all this. Then one day a patient of mine says, Doc, why don't you just videotape this thing, because I'm sure you say the same thing to every patient. Well, I don't say the same thing to every patient, but I certainly say the same thing to every brain patient. I say the same thing to every peripheral neuropathy patient, an autoimmune patient. So that's why I have these different videos. So I only accept 5 bad brain patients per month. Normally I charge $450 for those 2 first visits. But if you call up and say you want to do this, you can get those 2 visits for $65. That would be the evaluation, looking at the paperwork, going over that, and a complete report, a written report and a verbal report, and go over any of the labs, go over any of the imaging that you bring in. I'll go over all that for you. And I will include the brain mapping and the results. That's another $250 value. So for $700 worth of stuff at $65, you say, well, how can I do that? Well, because I don't want to charge you to tell you I can't help you. I don't want to charge you a bunch of money for you to say this isn't for you. That's not my job. I take care of patients. I get to the underlying cause as a detective. I mentor them as a coach and doctor, and then I teach you how to take care of yourself for the rest of your life so you don't need me or anybody else. So I got 3 rules for acceptance into care. So first, though, you got to be willing to make lifestyle changes. I could guarantee there's something you're doing that's contributing to your health problem in the way you eat or do or don't do things. So we're going to change that. You have to take accountability for your own personal health. A lot of people say, oh, it's my parents' problem or my kid's problem or my insurance company's problem or it's my government's problem. It's your problem. You need to take responsibility. The people that take responsibility get the best results. Yeah, insurance and Medicare only pay a smaller part of this care if they pay for any of it, right? See, that stuff's set up for drug, shot, surgery. Those things don't work. So I do things that don't work. Guess what? They don't want to pay for them. Well, insurance would want to pay for things that work. No, they want to pay things that are medical. They want to pay for drug, shots, and surgeries. That's what they want to pay for. So we've made our care plans so affordable that 96% of all the people that come and see us that want care can qualify for monthly payments. And as they make these monthly payments, you can do it for as little as $200 to $400 a month for 18 months. And we don't charge any interest or any fee. And we do this through a company that pays me directly and charges me and then lets you pay them back over a period of time. Works really well for everybody. Now you go, oh, that's a lot of money. Well, think about this. You're probably watching this video. You have a place to live. You paid for that. You probably have a car. You're paid for that, or you're still paying for that. You probably have a cell phone. You're paying for that every month. You probably have cable, internet. You're paying for that all the month. You probably go out to eat. Pay for that. You might go on vacations. You pay for that. So you see, there's a lot of things that you pay for that you want. And it's my opinion, and every patient that's gone through my program and gotten well, they all say the same thing. It was totally worth it. I can do the things I want to do. I have my life back, or I got my kid back, or I got my parents back. Totally worth it. That peace of mind is worth $1 million. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is your illness? How bad are you suffering with this problem, or your family member? How's this affected your relationships, your work, your ability to enjoy life? See, this is the sadness that I see, that when people aren't getting the help they need, not only is it affecting them, it's affecting the things they love. You know, their wife, their husband, their children, their parents, their ability to work, their career, their self-esteem. You know, the things to get out, to enjoy life, to have a good life. It's not that difficult if you know what to do to make the body work right. This is very important. On a scale of 1 to 10, how serious are you about eliminating this problem? It's so important that you understand. If you're an 8, 9, or 10, give me a call and let's get started. If you're 1 to a 7, that's probably not going to work. People that are 7s or less, they don't have the commitment that it takes to get well. They'll try it for a little bit, or they'll do the best they can, and that doesn't really work. The body has black and white ways of working, and you can't step around it. You know, that's why medications are so popular, right? It's the way our system is based upon, because there's this idea that I can just keep doing the dumb things that are making me sick, but if I take a pill, I'll be better. But really, the pill just makes you worse. So 8, 9s, and 10s, let's get started. Let's get your body better. And due to time constraints, again, I can only accept those people who are really, truly committed. Thank you so much. I know this has been a long video, and I've gone through a lot of information. I love what I do. I love helping people. You know, I'm one of those crazy people that gets up Monday morning and goes, yeah, I get to go to the office, and I get to help. I'm in my car whistling and singing on the way to the office as I look around at all the people that, you know, look like they're off to the, you know, the death chamber. I just really love what I do, and I love educating people and getting them as well and happy, as healthy as possible. So with all that, I wish you all the best. If it doesn't work out for our office, I sure hope and pray that you get what you're looking for. But my suggestion is give us a call, and I'll see you soon.